I thought it might be helpful, before we go into specifics of helping children to manage grief, just to take a step back and put a framework and some real clarity around what we mean by grief, bereavement and mourning. Bereavement is what's happened to you, and it's an inevitable part of the life cycle. We see it all around us in nature. Leaves and flowers bloom and then they wilt and die, in the change in the seasons, and in animals and plants. Potentially having animals at home so children can understand the life cycle element of death can be useful if you've got capacity. Fish are often a good starter, as they don't need a huge amount of maintenance, and in our family's experience they do appear to die quite frequently. Other things you could do is point out themes around people dying during watching films or reading books, just to normalise that it's a normal part of life. We do know from research that a bereavement in childhood does not necessarily result in a mental health problem. Grief is how we feel and react to a loss. It's a normal response to loss, and it's also a process. How someone will grieve is impacted by different things. This is going to vary depending on, firstly, who the person was and the child's relationship to them. Secondly, the circumstances of the death. Was it expected, unexpected or traumatic? Thirdly, the age and stage of development of your child. We're going to come on to this in the other videos, and we'll look at this in more depth. Your child's temperament. This actually plays quite a big factor. In considering temperament, we know that there are 9 different temperament traits, and we're all different. Please do watch our temperament video and complete the temperament quiz for more information. Dr. Richard Wilson described grief, the grief journey, a bit like a waterfall. We all go along the river of life, and when a bereavement comes, it can feel like falling down a waterfall into a whirlpool. We can feel shock, numbness and denial as we fall. The whirlpool represents the emotional upheaval that follows: anger, guilt, anxiety, a range of feelings. We can at times feel that we're on the rocks, with pain and physical symptoms, and occasionally a bit washed up or stuck in our grief. However, the majority of people, the mourning and acceptance brings them out of the whirlpool and back into the river. Grief is a significant process, and it is emotional. We can't take that away. In our following videos, we look at how children process grief, how do I discuss death and dying with my child, and what can I do to help my child work through their grief. Mourning is the emotional process we go through to work through a loss. It's essential, and according to Professor Warden, is about working through a series of tasks. Here, our Teddy, from our resource book Teddy with the Hole in Its Heart, helps us understand the 4 tasks of mourning. William Warden describes the 4 steps of mourning. We can often bounce around and they aren't always in an orderly fashion. What we do need to remember is it takes effort to work through them. It doesn't just happen. So step 1 is to accept the reality of the loss. This can take a long time, even up to 4 years. Step 2, to process the pain of grief. This is a process, and it can be painful. In our book, The Teddy with the Hole in the Heart, we talk about why it hurts and what things we can do to help process that pain. Step 3 is to adjust to a world without the person who's died. This can be on a very practical level for a child. Who will take me to school? Who will look after me? This stage is all about adjusting to the gaps that person has left. Step 4 is finding an enduring connection with the person who's died in the midst of embarking on a new life. It's about making a connection that you can hold on to. What we do know with children as they go through the different development stages, they may need to revisit the event and rework out how to make a connection with the person who's died. So to summarise, bereavement is what happens to you. Grief is about how you feel and react to that loss, and as we've seen, it's a bit like falling down a waterfall into a whirlpool until we get our bearings and come back into the river. Mourning is the process, an emotional process of dealing with that loss and what you do.